Once upon a time, in the bustling heart of Lagos, where ambition wore designer labels and dreams were priced in dollars, there lived a young woman named Sandra Adeyanju. At 23, Sandra had mastered an art form that universities didn't teach and her mother would never approve of: the delicate science of living well without working hard. Sandra's one-bedroom apartment in Lekki Phase 1 wasn't much to look at from the outside, but inside, it was a content creation studio disguised as a home. Ring lights stood in every corner like sentinels. Her closet overflowed with designer pieces, some real, most convincingly fake, all carefully tagged and catalogued for maximum Instagram impact. Her phone, always at 15% battery, despite being perpetually plugged in, was her most valuable possession. It was her office, her storefront, and her weapon of choice. On this particular Saturday morning, Sandra sat cross-legged on her bed, her silk bonnet still tied firmly around her head, scrolling through her Instagram feed with the focus of a stockbroker watching the market. Her page, at Sandra Locks Life, boasted 47,000 followers who believed she was living the dream. And why wouldn't they? Every post showed her draped in luxury: bottomless mimosas at Sky Restaurant, shopping bags from Saks Fifth Avenue, actually from her friend who works there and let her borrow display items for photos, and candid shots in exotic locations, often just well and good pictures from hotel lobbies she never checked into. Her phone buzzed. The group chat labeled Soft Life Sisters was already active. Their conversation read as follows: Zainab, girls, Alhaji just sent me 500k for hair. I'm buying that Fendi bag we saw last week. Chioma, you people are not serious. Sandra, how far with that tech guy? Has he proposed yet? Sandra rolled her eyes and typed back with perfectly manicured nails, acrylics courtesy of Mr. Emmanuel, the banker who thought he was our one and only. Sandra, I beg, I'm working on it. These self-made men are different from the old money guys. They ask too many questions. Chioma, like what? Sandra, like, what are your goals? What do you want to build? Bab, I want to build a walk-in closet in your house. That's my goal. Chioma, Sandra, you are not well. But seriously, if he's asking those kinds of questions, he might be one of those empower your woman types. Use it. Tell him you want to start a business. He'll fund it, then you chop the money. Sandra smiled. Chioma always had the angles figured out. The three of them had been friends since their days at the University of Lagos, where they'd majored in mass communication but graduated with PhDs in strategic mail management, while their classmates were now struggling at media houses for 60,000 naira monthly. Sandra and her girls were living like celebrities, funded by a rotating cast of men who never quite made it to boyfriend status before being replaced. Sandra's morning routine was as calculated as a military operation. She spent 2 hours getting ready, not to go anywhere in particular, but because opportunity, like Danfo bosses, didn't wait for anyone. Her Instagram story showed her making a green smoothie in her tiny kitchen, angling the camera to hide the pile of unwashed dishes in the sink and the nearly empty fridge behind her. The caption read, "Starting the day right. #wellness journey. #self-care." In reality, once the camera stopped recording, she poured the smoothie down the sink and ordered jollof rice and chicken from the mama put down the street. By noon, Sandra was ready to work. And by work, she meant positioning herself where rich men congregated. Today's location, the Palm Shopping Mall in Lekki. She wore a simple but elegant midi dress that hugged her curves like cling film on a plate of rice, paired with her authentic Gucci bag, a gift from Oga Samuel, the married oil executive who disappeared after his wife found Sandra's messages. That bag was the only real designer item she owned, and she treated it like the Mona Lisa. As she walked through the mall, Sandra's eyes swept the environment like a hawk looking for prey. She could spot a man with money from 50 meters away. It was in the way they walked, the confidence that came from never checking price tags, the quality of their watches, the ease with which they handled themselves in spaces that made regular people feel small. She was pretending to window shop at a jewelry store when her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered with her soft girl voice, that one that was 3 octaves higher than her normal tone. Hello? Is this Sandra Adeyanju? Yes, who is this? This is Samson. We met last weekend at the rooftop party. You told me about your sustainable fashion project. Sandra's mind raced. Rooftop party, last weekend. She had crashed at least 3 parties that Saturday. Sustainable fashion. Ah, yes. The lie she had told the tall, handsome man with the kind eyes and the obviously expensive watch. The one who had listened to her fabricated stories about wanting to create eco-friendly African print designs with the attention of someone actually interested. Oh, yes, Samson. How could I forget? She could absolutely forget, but that wasn't the point. How are you? I'm well. Listen, I wanted to follow up on our conversation. I think what you're trying to do is really innovative. I'd love to take you to dinner and discuss it further. Maybe I could connect you with some people in my network. Sandra's heart did a small dance. She remembered now. Samson Kelechi, 31-year-old tech entrepreneur, self-made millionaire. She had done her Instagram research after the party. His profile was modest, mostly pictures of tech events and motivational quotes, but his tagged photos told the real story. Penthouse apartment, private art collection, invitations to presidential dinners. That would be amazing, she purred. I'm really passionate about creating opportunities for local artisans while promoting environmental sustainability. She had no idea what half those words meant in practical application, but she'd learned that rich people loved hearing them. They agreed to meet at Sakanon Parel, a restaurant so expensive that Sandra had only seen it on other people's Instagram stories. As she hung up, she immediately opened the group chat. Their conversation read as follows. Sandra, girls, the tech guy just called. Dinner at Seka. This is it. This is the one. Zainab, Seka now. Sandra, if you mess this up while disowning you, that man is rich. Chioma, what are you wearing? Please, not that dress you've worn to the last 5 first dates. Sandra, I need to go shopping. Who has a guy that can send money today? Zainab, use the 200K in your account now. The one Mr. Emmanuel sent last month. That's my emergency fund. I can't touch it. Emergency fund for what exactly? This is the emergency. You need to look like $1 million to catch $1 million man. Sandra knew Chioma was right. By evening, she'd burned through 150,000 naira at a boutique in Victoria Island. Imagine with a dress that made her look like money itself had taken human form. The date was set for Friday evening. Sandra spent the week doing research. She watched YouTube videos about sustainable fashion, memorized talking points about environmental impact, and even created a fake mood board on Pinterest titled Sandra Adeanju Designs, filled with pictures she'd stolen from actual African fashion designers. If Samson asked to see her work, she was ready. Friday arrived like Christmas morning. Sandra took 3 hours to get ready, transforming herself into the kind of woman who belonged in Sakanon Parel. Her makeup was flawless, beat to the gods, as Chioma would say. Her hair, freshly done at a salon she'd promised to pay next week, cascaded down her shoulders in perfect waves. She looked at herself in the mirror and smiled. This was it. This was her ticket to the soft life she'd always dreamed of. Samson was already seated when she arrived, and Sandra had to suppress her appreciation. The man was fine, not just fine, but fine like a well-written love poem. Tall, with skin the color of midnight, a jawline that could cut glass, and those eyes that seemed to actually see people, not just look at them. He stood when she approached, pulling out her chair with a gentleness that was rare in Lagos. Sandra, you look stunning, he said, and she could tell he meant it. Thank you. You look quite handsome yourself. Dinner was perfect. The food was exquisite. Small portions that cost more than most people's weekly salary, but delicious enough to almost justify the price. More importantly, Samson was everything Sandra had hoped for. He was intelligent, funny, and genuinely interested in her fake sustainable fashion business. He asked detailed questions that she deflected with carefully crafted vague answers, always steering the conversation back to his accomplishments. Men loved talking about themselves, and Sandra had mastered the art of listening like every word was scripture. So, my company started in my one-room apartment in Yaba. I was coding for 16 hours a day, living on Indomie and pure determination. That's so inspiring, Sandra gushed, reaching across the table to touch his hand. You're proof that hard work pays off. She hadn't worked hard a day in her life, but she knew the words he wanted to hear. As the evening progressed, Sandra deployed every trick in her arsenal. The laugh that was musical without being too loud, the way she leaned in when he spoke as if he was the only person in the universe, the casual touches, his arm, his hand, his shoulder, each one calculated to seem spontaneous. The way she let him catch her looking at him, then shyly looked away. By the end of dinner, Samson was smitten, or at least that's what Sandra believed. He drove her home in his Mercedes G-Wagon, the kind of car that made other drivers give way without being asked. When he walked her to her door, he didn't try to invite himself in, which surprised her. "I had a wonderful time tonight. I'd love to see you again." "I'd love that too." He kissed that cheek, gentle as a prayer, and left. Sandra closed her door, leaned against it, and screamed into her hands with excitement. She immediately grabbed her phone. Sandra: "Girls, I'm in love." Chioma: "In love with him or his money?" Sandra: "Both. Is there a difference?" Over the next 3 months, Sandra and Samson became inseparable, or so it appeared on Instagram. Sandra's followers watched their relationship unfold in perfectly filtered squares, couple photos at art galleries, romantic dinners, weekend getaways to Calabar and Abuja. At Sandra, Locke's life was living her best life, and the comments confirmed it. Couple goals: "Sandra, you're winning in life. When will God do my own?" Behind the curated images, Sandra was working overtime. Something was different from the other men she dated. He was generous, too generous sometimes, buying her gifts she didn't even hint at wanting. But he was also intentional. He didn't just throw money at her and expect gratitude. He wanted to know her, really know her, and that was becoming increasingly problematic. "So, tell me about your family," he asked one evening as they lounged in his penthouse, the Lagos skyline twinkling below them like earthbound stars. Sandra had prepared this answer. "It's just my mom and my younger brother. My dad passed when I was 12. Mom's a retired teacher. She lives in Ibadan." This was actually true. One of the few honest things Sandra had ever told a man. Her mother, Mrs. Adeyanju, was indeed a retired teacher who lived modestly in Ibadan, disappointed by her daughter's choices but too tired to fight anymore. That must have been hard, losing your father so young. It was, but it taught me to be independent, to take care of myself. The irony of this statement, coming from a woman who hadn't paid her own rent in 2 years, was lost on no one but Samson. "I respect that," he said thoughtfully. "Which is why I wanted to talk to you about something." Sandra's antennae went up. This sounded serious. "I've been thinking about your fashion business. You've been talking about it for months, but I haven't seen you take any concrete steps. No business plan, no prototype samples, nothing." Sandra felt her stomach tighten. "I've been working on it. These things take time." "I know they do, which is why I want to help. I've arranged for you to meet with my friend Kemi. She runs a fashion accelerator program. She can help you develop a proper business plan, connect you with manufacturers, everything you need." Sandra's mind raced like a Lagos driver avoiding potholes. This was not the plan. The plan was to keep the fashion business idea vague enough that she could milk it for sympathy and funding without ever having to produce actual results. That's so thoughtful of you," she managed. "I also enrolled you in an entrepreneurship course at the Lagos Business School. It starts next month. 3 months, twice a week. I've already paid for it." Sandra felt like she was being pushed toward a cliff she hadn't seen coming. "Samson, you didn't have to do all that." "I know I didn't have to. I wanted to." "Sandra, you are brilliant. You are creative, but I see you coasting, and you are capable of so much more. I want to see you build something real, something that is yours." This speech, which would have made other women weep with gratitude, made Sandra want to scream. She didn't want to build anything. She wanted to be built for, to be taken care of, to live the soft life without the hard work. But she couldn't say that, so she smiled and kissed him and told him he was amazing. That night, she called an emergency meeting with her girls at their usual spot, a small bar in Ikeja where the lights were low enough to hide their scheming faces. "He's trying to change me," Sandra complained, nursing her 3rd glass of wine. "Talking about business plans and courses and building something. I don't want to build anything. I want to marry him and inherit what he's already built." Chioma, ever the pragmatist, shook her head. This is the problem with these self-made men. They think because they suffered, everyone should suffer. The old money men just give you their credit card and mind their business. "What should I do?" Sandra asked. Zainab, who had been quiet, finally spoke. "Play along. Go to the meetings. Attend the course. You don't have to actually do anything. Just make it look like you are trying. Men like effort, even fake effort. String him along for a few more months. Get pregnant, then you are locked in. Once you are the mother of his child, all this build something talk will disappear." Sandra considered this. The pregnancy route was risky but effective. It had worked for countless women before her. One carefully timed accident and her future would be secure. There was just one problem. Samson was almost annoyingly careful about protection. He was the kind of man who kept condoms in his drawer like other people kept breath mints. Always prepared, always responsible. She had tried suggesting they ditch the condoms, using excuses about wanting to feel closer to him, but he had gently insisted,
saying he wasn't ready for children yet. Yet. That word hung in her mind like a promise and a threat. The entrepreneurship course started, and Sandra attended exactly 3 sessions before the reality of waking up early on Saturday mornings became unbearable. She sent Samson pictures of the course materials, screenshots of notes she had downloaded from Google, anything to maintain the illusion of effort. He seemed pleased, which meant she was winning. But after 3 months of dating Samson, Sandra was getting frustrated. Yes, he was generous. Yes, he treated her well. But he wasn't moving fast enough. There was no ring, no talk of marriage, no real security. Just an endless cycle of dates and gifts and his persistent attempts to make her a better person. It was exhausting being someone's project. One evening, while scrolling through her Instagram DMs, a name that popped up made her heart skip. Not from love, but from muscle memory of excitement. Chiboy. Omo, see who's doing big girl things now. You don't forget your day one. Chiboy. Chinedu Okafor. Better known as DJ Chiboy, the man who had broken her heart 2 years ago by being exactly who he said he was, a commitment-phobic DJ who loved women the way children loved candy, intensely but briefly. Sandra had sworn she was done with him, but there was something about his message, the familiar cocky tone, that pulled at something in her. She shouldn't reply. She knew she shouldn't, but her fingers moved of their own accord. Sandra, day one. You mean the one who ghosted me for 3 months? Chiboy, babe, I was on tour now. You know how it is. But I'm back now. I miss you. When are you free? Sandra knew this was a terrible idea, the kind of idea that had consequences. But she was frustrated with Samson's attempts to improve her, tired of pretending to care about business plans and sustainability and building something real.
Chiboy represented her past, a simpler time when she didn't have to pretend to be ambitious, when they could just drink and laugh and exist without expectations. Sandra said, I'm in a relationship now. Chiboy, so I'm not asking you to marry me. Just come through. 1 drink, for old time's sake. 1 drink turned into 3. 3 drinks turned into 4. 4 drinks turned into Sandra waking up in Chiboy's friend's apartment. The same cramped 1-bedroom in Surulere, where he'd always lived. Where the ceiling fan made more noise than it did wind. Where the walls were so thin you could hear the neighbors' conversations like they were in the room with you. Sandra stared at the ceiling, her head pounding from too much alcohol and too many bad decisions. Chiboy was still asleep beside her, snoring softly, his arm draped across her waist with casual ownership. She carefully extracted herself, gathered her clothes from the floor, and got dressed with the urgency of someone defusing a bomb. What has she done? In the bathroom, she splashed water on her face and looked at herself in the cracked mirror. She looked the same. Same face, same eyes, same Sandra. But she felt different, marked by her mistake. She grabbed her phone and called an Uber, sneaking out before Chiboy woke up. That should have been the end of it. 1 mistake, 1 moment of weakness, 1 night that would be buried in the vault of things she'd never speak of again. But Sandra, for all her scheming intelligence, had a weakness for familiar comfort. Chiboy represented a world where she didn't have to try, didn't have to pretend, didn't have to be better. So 1 night turned into 2. 2 turned into a month of secret meetings, stolen afternoons, lies stacked on lies like Jenga blocks waiting to tumble. She told Samson she was at the entrepreneurship course. She told Chioma she was with Samson. She told herself she would stop after 1 more time, then broke that promise like it was sugar paper. The universe, however, has a way of collecting debts. Sandra missed her period. Then she missed another one. The pregnancy test she bought from a pharmacy in Surulere, far from her neighborhood where people knew her, showed 2 bright pink lines that might as well have been neon signs spelling out, "Your life is over." She sat on her bathroom floor and cried. Not pretty tears, but the ugly kind. The kind that came from deep in your chest where fear lived. She was pregnant. Pregnant! The word felt foreign in her mouth, impossible, even though she'd literally been trying to get pregnant by Samson for weeks. When she finally stopped crying and could think clearly, Sandra called Chiboy. "We need to talk," she said, her voice flat. They met at a buka in Surulere, the kind of place where privacy was guaranteed by nobody caring about anyone else's business. "I'm pregnant," Sandra said without preamble. Chiboy nearly choked on his rice. "You are what?" "Pregnant. With your child." "How you sure seen her mind?" The question hit Sandra like a slap, even though she'd expected it. "Because you're the only one I've been with." This was technically not a lie. She'd been with Samson, but they'd never had unprotected sex. Chiboy was the only possibility. Chiboy put down his spoon, his face going through a series of expressions like a slideshow: shock, denial, anger, fear, and finally resignation to irresponsibility. Sandra, I can't be nobody's father right now. You know my situation. I dey live inside my guy apartment. I barely fit take care of myself. I beg, handle it. I go send you money for, For what? An abortion. I no fit train pikin right now. I no ready. Sandra looked at this man she once thought she loved. This man who had made her laugh until her stomach hurt, who had held her through cold nights, who had promised her nothing and delivered exactly that. He was exactly who he'd always been, a good-time guy with no plans beyond the weekend. The problem wasn't him. The problem was her, expecting him to be anything else. I'll handle it, she said quietly. She left him at the booker, her mind already working through scenarios like a chess player, considering moves. She couldn't afford an abortion, not financially and not morally. Despite everything, Sandra wasn't sure she could go through with it. But more than that, as she walked to the main road to catch a taxi, an idea began to form in her mind. Terrible in its simplicity. She was pregnant. Samson didn't know she'd been with anyone else. If she told him the baby was his, that thought felt heavy, wrong, in a way her usual lies didn't. This wasn't pretending to care about sustainable fashion. This was creating a human being under false pretenses. This was tying a good man to a lie that would last 18 years minimum. But what choice did she have? That evening, she scrolled through her Instagram looking at pictures of herself and Samson. They looked happy. They looked like a couple that would have beautiful children together. Maybe the baby would look more like her anyway. Maybe Samson would never need to know. Sandra spent a week preparing. She calculated dates, making sure they aligned plausibly with her last period before she started seeing Chiboy again. She watched YouTube videos of women telling their boyfriends they were pregnant, studying their tears, their joy, their fear. She practiced in her mirror, trying to find the right balance of scared and happy, overwhelmed but hopeful. Finally, on a Sunday evening, when Samson was relaxed and vulnerable, fresh from a shower and wearing the soft, worn t-shirt that made him look younger than his 31 years, Sandra made her move. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice trembling with real nerves. "Of course." He patted the couch beside her, and she sat, taking his hand in both of hers. "I have something to tell you, and I don't know how you're going to react." His face shifted to concern. "Are you okay? Is something wrong?" She took a shaky breath, let a tear slip down her cheek. I'm pregnant." The silence that followed felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. Sandra watched Samson's face carefully, looking for shock, panic, anger, anything that would tell her how to proceed. But what she saw instead was something she didn't expect. Calm, pure, unsettling calm. "Are you sure?" he asked quietly. "I took 3 tests, all positive." "When did you find out?" 2 days ago. "I've been trying to figure out how to tell you. I know we haven't talked about this. I know you said you are not ready for children, but..." He squeezed her hand gently. Hey, it's okay. Take a breath." Sandra took a breath, confused by his composure. Where was the panic? Where was the fear? "Sandra, look at me," Samson said, and she did, looking into those eyes that had always seen too much. "If you are pregnant, then we'll figure it out, together. I'm not going anywhere." This was not the reaction Sandra had expected. She'd expected shock, maybe even anger, definitely fear. She'd expected him to need time to process, to pull away, to create distance she would then have to bridge with tears and promises. But this immediate acceptance. "You are not upset?" she asked, genuinely confused. "Upset? Sandra, life happens. Yes, this is earlier than I would have planned, but that doesn't mean I'm going to abandon you or our child. We're in this together." He pulled her into his arms, and Sandra felt herself relaxing against his chest. Maybe this would be okay. Maybe this would work out better than she had planned. "Maybe we should see a doctor tomorrow," Samson said, pulling back to look at her. "I want to make sure you're healthy, that the baby's healthy, and we should probably start looking at bigger apartments. This penthouse is great for a bachelor, but we'll need more space for a family." Over the next few weeks, Samson transformed into the perfect expectant father. He researched prenatal vitamins, bought pregnancy books, started talking about converting his home office into a nursery. He was attentive, caring, asking about her symptoms, making sure she ate well, holding her hair when morning sickness hit. It should have been everything Sandra wanted, but instead of feeling secure, she felt increasingly uneasy, like wearing a shoe that almost fits
but pinched in places you couldn't see. Samson asked questions, so many questions, about her symptoms, her doctor's appointments, which she kept canceling, her diet, her stress levels, and his eyes, those intelligent, perceptive eyes, seemed to be watching her more carefully than before, like he was studying the puzzle he couldn't quite solve. "Have you told your mom yet?" he asked one evening over dinner. "Not yet. I want to wait until I'm past the first trimester, just to be safe." "That's wise. Have you thought about names?" "It's too early for that." "You are right, but I've been thinking we should probably get married before the baby comes. I know we haven't been dating that long, but I want to do this right. I want our child to be born into a stable, committed home." Sandra's heart should have soared. This was it. This was what she'd been angling for all along. Marriage, security, the soft life guaranteed. But instead of joy, she felt dread crawling up her spine like an insect. "We can't talk about it," she said weakly. That night, alone in her apartment, Sandra stared at the ceiling and wondered when her perfect plan had started feeling like a trap. She was 8 weeks pregnant according to the timeline she had given Samson, though in reality, she was closer to 10. Every day, she woke up wondering if today would be the day he figured it out. Her group chat had gone quiet. Chiona and Zainab had celebrated initially, sending congratulatory messages about Sandra finally securing her future. But as the weeks passed and Sandra became more withdrawn, more anxious, they stopped asking questions she couldn't answer. Then one Saturday morning, everything began to unravel. Sandra was at Samson's apartment, having reluctantly agreed to spend the weekend, when his phone rang. She was in the bathroom and heard him answer, his voice carrying that professional tone he used for business calls. "Yes, this is Samson Kelechi. Yes, I requested those records. Can you email them to me?" "No, that's perfect, thank you." When she came out, he was sitting on the couch, his laptop open, his face unreadable. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Fine, just some business stuff." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "How are you feeling? Any morning sickness today?" "A little, nothing I can't handle." They spent the day doing mundane things, watching movies, cooking together, talking about nothing important. But Sandra couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted, like the air pressure before a storm. That evening, Samson suggested they go to dinner. "Nothing fancy," he said. "There's this nice place in VI I've been wanting to try." Sandra agreed, relieved for the distraction. She wore a simple dress, nothing too elaborate, and they drove in comfortable silence to the restaurant, a beautiful space with mood lighting and soft jazz playing in the background. They ordered food, made small talk about the menu, the ambience, everything and nothing. Sandra was just starting to relax when Samson reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a manila envelope. "Sandra, there's something we need to discuss," he said, gentle but firm. "What is it?" Her heart began to race. "These are my medical records." Sandra's blood ran cold. "Medical records? Why?" "Because there's something I haven't told you. Something I should have mentioned earlier, but I wanted to see." He trailed off, then continued. 5 years ago, after my last serious relationship ended badly, I made a decision. I got a vasectomy."
The restaurant suddenly felt too hot, too cold, too everything. Sandra's ears were ringing. A what? A vasectomy. A permanent form of male contraception. "It means I can't father children, Sandra. I can't, and I haven't been able to for 5 years. He slid the papers across the table. Medical reports, documentation, proof of a procedure she hadn't known about, hadn't even considered. Sandra stared at them like they were written in a foreign language. But that's impossible. I'm pregnant." "Are you?" Samson asked quietly. "Or is someone else the father?" Sandra felt like the ground was dissolving beneath her feet. "Samson, I don't understand what you're saying. There has to be a mistake. Maybe the procedure didn't work. That can happen, right? You hear stories." "Sandra." His voice was kind, almost pitiful. "I get tested every year. The procedure was successful. There's no medical possibility that I'm the father of your child." The tears that came now were real, born of panic and shame, and the realization that her entire house of cards was collapsing. "Samson, please, you have to believe me. I haven't been with anyone else. I wouldn't." He pulled out more papers, screenshots, photos, her Instagram Finsta that she thought was private, where she and her friends joked about the men they were dating. Pictures of her entering and leaving an apartment building in Surulere, taken by someone she'd never noticed. Date stamps, times, a complete record of her affair with Triboy.
I've known for 3 weeks, Samson said calmly. When you told me you were pregnant, I knew immediately it wasn't mine. But I wanted to see how far you'd go. I wanted to understand if there was any part of you that was real, any part of our relationship that was genuine. Sandra couldn't speak. Words had abandoned her like fair weather friends. I hired a private investigator. I know about Chiboy. I know this has been going on for over a month. I know you tried to pin this pregnancy on me because he refused to take responsibility. He paused, his face a mask of disappointment. What I don't know is why. Why you thought I was stupid enough to fall for this. Why you thought you could build a life on lies. Samson, I can explain. Can you? Can you explain why you never went to those entrepreneurship classes after the first 3 sessions? Why your sustainable fashion business was nothing but a Pinterest board of stolen images? Why every story you told me about your dreams and ambitions was fiction? Each question landed like a physical blow. I know about your group chat, Sandra. Soft Life Sisters. I read the messages where you and your friends laugh about men like me. Where you trade tactics on how to manipulate us. How to extract maximum benefit with minimum effort. His voice finally showed emotion. Not anger, but something worse. Disappointment. I thought you were different. I thought beneath all the performance there was substance. I wanted to help you find it. To help you become the woman I thought you could be. You were just trying to change me, Sandra said weakly. No, I was trying to see you. The real you. But this, he gestured to the paper spread across the table like evidence at a trial. This is the real you, isn't it? Someone who sees people as resources to be mined. Someone who confuses being taken care of with being loved. He stood up, reaching for his wallet. Where are you going? Sandra's voice was barely a whisper. Home, alone. He pulled out enough cash to cover the bill and placed it on the table. You should probably call Chiboy. Let him know he's going to be a father whether he wants to or not. Or don't, that's not my business anymore. Samson, please don't leave me here like this. He looked at her for a long moment, and Sandra saw in his eyes something that broke her more than anger ever could. Pity. I'm not leaving you, Sandra. You were never really here to begin with. You were always just performing, always playing a role. I fell in love with the character you created, but this is the end. Goodbye. He left Sandra, who was fighting back tears, face etched with regret.